Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good wherever you are. I'm your host, That Lit Astro Chick, the channel where we discuss the natal charts of authors, writers, artists, and anybody that I find to be interesting. I do realize that it's taking me a while to really do these videos, and I'm sometimes not sure how I want to do them in terms of the introductions. And I believe it's because I'm kind of old. I'm also a Luddite, and my Chiron is in Gemini. So it's very difficult for me to sometimes do these types of videos because I'm very nervous in terms of the way that I communicate. But I did want to get one video out, and I want to see if I can get through these charts a little bit more quickly. So today's natal chart is going to cover the author Ann Petry. Now, I didn't know who she was until I watched Cecilia Regina's channel. And after that, I picked up the book The Street, which is her most popular book. And I was really impressed by it. And I wish that I had known who she was when I was in high school, because it probably could have saved me a little bit of heartache in the ways that I was thinking about myself in terms of being a writer, in terms of race. Is something that has come up a lot for me when it comes to my writing, is that nobody cares about the content that I write. That's a whole nother story. But let's go ahead and let's discuss Ann Petry's natal chart, because unfortunately I don't have 3 million years because I actually have to leave the house today. So a little bit of background on her. Ann Petry was an American writer of novels, short stories, children's books, and journalism. Her 1946 debut novel, The Street, was the first novel written by an African-American woman to sell more than 1 million copies. In 2019, the Library of America published a volume of her work containing The Street, as well as her 1953 masterpiece, The Narrows, and a few other shorter pieces of nonfiction. I think I may actually read The Narrows, but that's according to the Wikipedia page. So let's get to her natal chart. And I'm really excited about this natal chart because I actually have the ascendant this time. So I do have the house placements for her. So Ann Petry was born on October 12th, 1908 in Old Saybrook, Connecticut. First thing that I'm noticing here, and I'm going to hop around a little bit on the chart, is the fact that she is a Libra sun. So Ann would be somebody who would be very much focused on strategy. I know that Libras tend to have a bit of a reputation as being very peaceful because they are oftentimes in the middle of arguments. It's one of the signs of mediation, one of the astrological signs that deals with law, as well as with publishing. And because her sun in Libra, it does trine with her Pluto, which is in Gemini. This would make for somebody who would be very successful, specifically within the lifetime that she did have. And in addition to that, I do want to discuss her nodes. So as I always say before, the story of the nodes answers where we have been, and the north node refers to where we will go. Now, for Ann's chart, she actually has her south node in Sagittarius, so that means that her north node was in Gemini. And it's also at the 29th degree. That's an anaretic degree. This is going to refer to a degree where she would have had a lot of high pressure situations. It could also be a degree that's going to refer to a lot of success that she may have had. So she would have either been a flop, or she would have been somebody that was very successful. And because The Street was such a popular novel, of course, she was able to achieve that. So what that means is that Anne is somebody who came from many lifetimes of acquiring knowledge. So Sagittarius on the south node is going to refer to somebody who most likely has had a lot of lifetimes where they have been in seclusion in order to obtain knowledge, or where they have had vast life experiences on their own because of that Jupiter influence. And in fact, Gemini is exalted when it's on the North Node. So what that means is that for this lifetime, she was to focus more on her communication as well as to have a more outwardly facing life. So Anne's South Node is in her 6th house, as well as her Pluto, which means that her North Node would be most likely in the 12th house. So in a previous lifetime, she could have been somebody who was maybe very secluded from other people. She could have been a professor in a previous lifetime. She also could have been somebody who was a part of religious instruction. And in this lifetime, she was to take that wisdom, and she was going to focus more on communicating with other people to pass down the knowledge that she has. So Gemini in the North Node, it's also going to refer to more of a focus on cities, as well as a focus on having a very outward-facing life that's going to deal with a lot of people. She also, in this lifetime, was to embrace versatility, specifically when it comes to the topics that she communicated about. And of course, she mastered that like so beautifully and so gracefully in the street, because it's one of the first books that I read that does tackle race and gender simultaneously, because there are so many novels that are usually pushed when it comes to discussing the Black experience, especially in America, where it focuses either on race or it focuses on gender. So like an example of that would be Richard Wright's Native Son, how a lot of that was about Black manhood and Black masculinity, and women in his books are oftentimes tossed to the side. Another example I could think of, because I'm currently reading it, is Beloved by Toni Morrison. And I'm also going to do her natal chart. I might get to it perhaps tomorrow. And a lot of it is the focus on the Black experience, and Blackness is the most important part. And her characters as being women, that's a little bit second. BT Dubs, Toni does give me pick-me vibes from her chart, but I will get to her chart soon enough. But anyway, when it came to Anne's book, The Street, she does in the book discuss how the character, I think her name was Ludi, how she tries to navigate going through the world, specifically Harlem, in a way that was going to be supportive for her, because she's not getting any support. There are the issues that she has to deal with, racially speaking, from the employer that she has, who wants to fire her once it becomes clear that her husband is attracted to her. But then there's also the issue of the lack of support that she gets from her husband, who, when she moves to Harlem for work, moves another woman in and then has an affair with her. So I really did like the combination of those, and it does show that embrace of the Gemini North Node, because she does have a lot of versatility within that novel. I really do look forward to reading more of her second stories, but this is not a book report. Just want to discuss that part. And also because she does have her Pluto and her North Node, and those are both in the 6th house, that's going to refer to the fact that in this lifetime, she was to focus more on her work. And there were probably some shady issues that happened with work, and as well as with communication, because she does have it in the 6th house. And the 6th house deals with our work, it deals with our routines. It also deals with subordinates as well. So she was somebody, I think, that was looked up to very much. And I don't think that she initially thought that she was going to be looked up to. I had read an article a few weeks ago about how she didn't understand why people would want to collect her work. And I think that is a part of that 6th house, where she did have a lot of people that were that were fans with her and that really admired her. And perhaps that felt foreign to her because she was a Sagittarius South Node, and it was most likely in the 12th house. The next thing that I wanted to discuss is, I still need to get better at these. I'm going to do like a quick rundown of her chart. So another thing that I noticed is that when it comes to the communication that she most likely had, she does have her Mars running parallel to her Sun in Libra, and that is squaring her Capricorn ascendant. So she could have been somebody who probably thought a lot about race, especially earlier in her life, because when you do have the Sun squaring the Mars, this is usually going to refer to experiencing some type of bullying or harassment. And because she is a Capricorn rising, with Saturn being her chart ruler, this would make her somebody who probably was the target of racial discrimination. And I would assume that this is going to most likely be from a group of people, because I've always seen Libra as being one of the signs that refers to litters. So it could have been that she received a lot of harassment in terms of the way that she looked, especially when it came to her race. Another thing that I do think is very interesting is that she does have her Venus conjunct to her Jupiter, and both of those are in Virgo. So this could refer to having a celebrity aspect specifically to her chart. So there were a lot of people that were most likely really big fans of her. This also could refer to a very big reach. Even though you do have Venus and Jupiter in Virgo, and Venus is fallen when it's in Virgo, and Jupiter is at its detriment when it's in Virgo, I do think that these two things did actually help her, especially when it came to her reach. And in addition to that, she does have her Saturn, which is at that 5th degree of Aries. So once again, Saturn in Aries, it's going to refer to someone who's very self-serving. And at that 5th degree, someone who is going to be very crafty, because the number 5 is represented by Mercury. And squaring that ascendant, this could have made her someone who was possibly very short, or somebody who could have been very thin. I've just seen a couple of pictures of her, like when she was older. When she was younger. I mean, she was a baddie. When she was older, she was still a baddie. But, in addition to that, she also has her Saturn squaring her Neptune. Her Sun squaring her Neptune. So when you do have the Sun squaring the Neptune, and Neptune I've always seen as being a planet that refers to islands of sorts. This could have meant that maybe when it came to her desires in terms of who she wanted to be, maybe she really did have to focus in more on making something up, or like crafting a fantasy in this. Typically speaking, when you have a Sun squaring Neptune, it could refer to drug use. It could also refer to maybe some type of lies and deceptions when it comes to men in her life, specifically starting with her father. But I do think that this also meant that she thought a lot, specifically when it came to her race, because she does have her Neptune in Cancer, and Cancer is once again one of the signs that refers to the race, or that refers to race origin, because Cancer is represented by the mother of the zodiac. And in addition to that, I would say that she could have been someone who would have been very quirky, because she does have her Sun squaring her Uranus, and her Uranus is also in Capricorn, and that is going to be in her first house. So she could have been somebody who most likely could have had a lot of instances where she had changes within her physical body. She also could have had a lot of changes in terms of her employment, because Uranus helps to answer what will be changed. And in addition to that, she has her asteroid Juno, which is the asteroid that refers to common themes throughout our relationships. That is also conjunct to her first house, which is in Capricorn, that also contains Uranus. So she could have possibly had a lot of changes within her life when it came to her employment. And also work was most likely something that was very important to her that she thought about. Another interpretation of this could have been that she thought a lot about race in terms of the relationships that she had later on throughout her life. And I say that because she does have her Juno that's also in Capricorn. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the house placements, and then I'm going to go because I don't want this to be too long. The first house is represented by our physical body. That is in Capricorn, and she also most likely had a lot of changes in her values when it comes to her groupthink, because she does have that second house in Aquarius that also contains Chiron. Chiron is what I refer to colloquially speaking as being the Who Hurt You asteroid. Because it refers to wounds that we have that we may not necessarily be able to fully recover from, or something that we might question. Now, because she does have her Chiron in Aquarius, this could refer to a question when it comes to groupthink, especially when it comes to the way that people might manage their ideals in terms of networks. And with it being in her second house, this could have been a challenge, especially when it comes to her values as well as the way that she sees herself. However, I do see this as being something that she would have been able to overcome, and I say that because she does have her Lilith trining with her sun, and it doesn't quite trine with the Pluto, but she does have her sun trining Pluto, and her Pluto is in Gemini. And Gemini, when it's in Pluto, it refers to advancements, especially in terms of communication. So this was around the time when you had an explosion of things like newspapers, phones. I still can't believe that they went that long without a phone. Photography, films, telepathy. I think that silent films were actually starting to come into fruition during this particular time. So communication was something that was very important to her, as well as I think that neighborhoods, because the tail end of Pluto in Gemini is also part of the Great Migration. And as a brief history lesson, that's when a lot of African Americans, when they lived in the South, they migrated up to the North in order for the search of more financial opportunities, as well as to find more jobs. And then that's when you had the explosion of Black populations in cities such as Chicago, such as Harlem, Philadelphia. These cities, like, they had an explosion in population due to urbanization and job opportunities, and that was towards the tail end of Gemini. Her communication style, since we're talking about Gemini in third house, that is in Pisces, and her Saturn in Aries is also in there. So she could have been somebody who would have been very forthright when it comes to the way that she communicates with people. And it also would have been a possible issue for her, because Saturn does represent delays. And I believe it has fallen when it's in Aries. And in addition to that, she also has her moon is in the fifth house, and the fifth house deals with it deals with our children, and she does have a Taurus moon. Now her moon does it's not quite a quincunx, but it's awkwardly positioned to her sun. So it could have been that maybe what she got from her family, it most likely did help her, but I think that there could have been some adjustments for her, because the moon is it's in its home when it's in Taurus. In addition to that, because we have already discussed her sixth house, her seventh house contains Neptune, and it also contains Cancer. Not sure if I brought this up, but I think that maybe having Neptune in the seventh house could have referred to a long-term marriage, because she was married for a long time, and I believe that she has one daughter. And we do get proof of that because she does have her Venus, which is in Virgo. It trines with her Uranus in Capricorn, so that would result in a long-term marriage. And because she does have her Neptune in the 7th house, this could possibly refer to a fruitful marriage. It also could refer to a marriage that could be very long term, or there could have been lies or deceptions in there. Now, in addition to that, her 8th house, her 7th and her 8th house are interesting because she does have her part of fortune, which is in Leo, in her 7th house. So I would say that her marriage was very important to her. And she also has her vertex. And vertex is an asteroid that refers to expectations that we are supposed to meet in this lifetime. That is in the 8th house, and that's also in Leo. So those two are conjunct. They're like running very, very close to each other. In addition to that, she has her Lilith in Virgo, as well as her Venus and her Jupiter in that 8th house. So there's actually a lot going on within her 8th house. This could possibly refer to it could refer to having a lot of luck come by her way through other people. Maybe this could have even been an aspect that could have been like about a secret celebrity that she could have had, because there weren't that many African Americans that were getting published around this time. And it could have been a book where a lot of women maybe would have seen themselves in, so then they would have secretly purchased a copy, and that's how the street got to being 1 million copies that were sold, and that was the first time. It could also refer to someone who could be very well loved, specifically when it comes through secretive methods or methods when it comes to being passed down. And like I said before, it could have been a book that would have been passed down in secret by a lot of people, because she does have it in the 8th house, and the 8th house does refer to it refers to things that are unearned or that are given to us, typically speaking through a secretive method. In addition to that, she also has her 9th house, which contains her Sun and her Mars and her not Vesta. Yes, she does have Vesta. Also is going to be within that 9th house. So this also could refer to having a very far reach, specifically when it comes to other people who aren't within her neighborhood. It could also refer to possibly working in higher education, because she did work in higher education at some point in her life. Also, college could have been a very pivotal time for her, and I believe that it was, because she does have that Sun in the 9th house. One of my friends will sometimes ask me about, like, what are some astrological examples of someone who's going to be very famous as a writer. And one of them I would say is the fact that she has her Mercury is in her midheaven, and her midheaven is in Libra. So typically speaking, if you have planets that are in the midheaven, this is going to refer to having a lot of success, specifically within that area. Now, because she has her Mercury conjunct to her midheaven, this means that she would be seen as being very well known for the way that she can communicate with other people. And especially because it's in Libra, it's going to refer to an approach that will be very measured, an approach that will be very, very beautiful, because her prose was very beautiful. And Libra's magic touch is the fact that it's one of those signs to where it can make everything look really good, because Libra is one of the signs of PR. And she also could have been known for someone who would have been very strategic in the way that she approached her career, and I do believe that she was. And I think that that's actually where I'm going to wrap up here. I do have a lot more houses that I could talk about, but like I said before, I do want to get a lot better at just making these very short and clipped and more professional. My Jupiter is in Capricorn, which unfortunately is not a very good Jupiter, but it means that without work, faith is dead. So this is just me putting in the work. This now concludes the natal chart reading for Ann Petry. I hope that you enjoyed it. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and watch out for the next video.